I'm Sarah Lacy.
And I'm Paul Carr.
And welcome to another edition of Why Is This News, another transcontinental edition.
It feels like only yesterday that we did the last one.
And yeah, they've aired a week apart.
I know, it's weird.
Paul,
Mad television.
you have exciting news since we last spoke.
I do. I have a book out, which is actually out. I don't know when this is airing, so it's actually out yesterday, tomorrow, in 3 weeks, or yes, or
It's out. Let's just say that.
For me, it's just out, and it's here. It is. Look, I even have a copy. I finally have a copy of my own book.
Oh wow, that's exciting.
Very excited.
So this book, I read it months ago, and
Yeah.
I had to read it
Right.
because you broke a promise to me. You promised years ago when we first started being friends that you would never put me in a book since you write about yourself. And
Yeah.
lo and behold, you then sheepishly gave me the manuscript, and I realized I'm actually in the book quite a bit.
Originally, you probably can't. I know if we got split screens, you probably can't see the cover, but there's actually just a big picture of your face on the cover now. It's called Sarah Lacy and Other Stories. I mean, I don't know. I didn't really know when to tell you that, but
And despite the fact that I was pissed at the broken promise, I really loved this book, as you know. And I think, I'm so skeptical of memoirs, and I just feel like usually, I don't give a fuck about reading about you.
Yeah.
But, and I feel like you pulled it off with your first book. You pulled it off with your first book, and I was like, there's no way you can write a second book and write a whole nother book about you. But the second book's better than the first. So why do you think it worked?
I mean, whether or not I pulled it off is something for the reader. I'm flattered that you say that. I mean, genuinely, am, because I did basically fuck you over by writing about you when I said I wasn't going to. So you had every reason to hate it. I don't know. I think one of the secrets maybe is to not entirely write. I mean, it's not just a book about like it's not like reading my Twitter account, of like, then I went to the shops, then I did this. It's hopefully there's another narrative, which is the story about what happens when you decide to sell everything you have and go and live in hotels and you have absolutely no responsibility. And what happens to somebody when they literally have no responsibility, and when, as I was for a long time, you're rewarded for bad behavior. So I was basically being paid to write about my drunken, embarrassing, ridiculous behavior. So whereas like a child might be taught, don't put your hand in fire because it hurts, I would put my hand in fire, and when I brought it out, there'd be a pile of money in it. And so I was basically learning, not learning a lesson. So it's kind of maybe the reason it works is because it's not just about things I did. It's about what happens generally to people when they have, a lot of freedom. And also maybe it's because, there's a lot of interesting other people in it. There's there's Robert Locke. You two are interesting for quite different reasons, but I think both make interesting reading. And also it's, it tells an interesting story about, from a sort of technology and an internet point of view. We've written a lot about anonymous comments. And what it does touch on is I started out as this sort of snarky, like hidden behind a keyboard guy bitching about everyone. And then I started to sort of meet some of the people I wrote about and actually realized how embarrassing, I became embarrassed by some of the things I'd written.
So are you sick of always airing your dirty laundry at this point? I mean, your first book, incredibly personal, about you losing the love of your life. To this day, complete strangers come up to you on the street and say, I just need to know, did you guys get back together? Like, you invited and you get irritated at it, but you can't. You invited everyone into this intensely personal drama and horrible thing that you went through, and even make yourself look bad as the person who caused a great deal of it.
Well,
now you're inviting people into, your battles with alcoholism and drinking, and I mean, sort of even uglier sides to yourself. I mean, any trepidation there?
I don't know. I mean, it's funny actually. I had a meeting today with the PR person who in the middle of pitching me this hotel asked me about my ex-girlfriend who was written about in the first book. She said, "Oh, I've just finished your book and I have to ask," and it's like, oh fuck. That said, I mean, as you say, I brought it upon myself. I mean, it would be a bit much for me to say, oh, it's so hard, it's so difficult. I discovered that the only real skill I have, and the only thing anyone's ever said that I do well, is writing about myself and talking about the lessons I've learned.
What's interesting is I think you play more of a character on TechCrunch, and you're much more authentic in your book, which I would expect it to be the opposite. And I also feel like, you know, so you and I are best friends. We spent a lot of time together. We were very close over the period of this book, which is the reason you broke your promise to me. I mean, I knew probably more than almost anyone a lot of the stuff that was going on. And honestly, like, I was reading this book and like, oh, that's the girl he was dating then that he lied to me about, but he didn't call me for 3 weeks, and so I knew he was dating someone. I mean, like, even people who are close friends with you don't really know the real you until they read your books. I mean, that's kind of weird, don't you think? I can't wait to read about Vegas because you've gone MIA in Vegas, and I know you've been dating someone there. So, but I will have to wait for the next book for me to learn the truth about what my friend has been doing in Vegas. But so why do you feel more free to be so like almost upsettingly candid in a book? Like there's one scene early on where I think the reader first gets a glimpse of your drinking problem and how extreme it can be, where I mean you cringe as the reader. Like you're so honest in your book in a way that you're not in anything else. Why is that?
Do you know what? I think a lot of it is the fact that, and we've talked about this before, there is this, there's this sort of plausible deniability when you're writing a book that maybe no one will read this. Like you have a disconnection with the fact that people are going to read it. I think when you're writing on the internet or on TechCrunch, the feedback is so instant that you find yourself sometimes thinking, even like me, when you're sort of like inherently want to share this sort of dirty laundry, you inevitably think, you know what, those fucking dick commenters or whatever are going to come in and say, you know, like, who gives a shit about, you know, how you're feeling, blah, blah, blah. And so you just think, fuck it, life's too short. I can't be bothered to even get into that discussion or get into that ridiculous response. So I'm just not going to bother. Whereas I think with the book, it's like, you're so disconnected from that audience. You've got such a gap, such a sort of like moat that you don't give a fuck. And I definitely think there's something about writing online where, because the feedback is so instant, even if you don't mean to, you find yourself responding to criticism that hasn't even arrived yet. Whereas I think with the book, I actually managed, and I pulled it off with the first book because I genuinely thought no one would read it. With the second book, I don't know what happened, but I managed to, I think, convince myself again that no one would read it. Which is, I think, why when people then do ask me about situations in the book, or when, you know, you just say some of the things you just said then, I sort of cringe a bit, because it's not because I'm embarrassed about having written them. It's just because it's only now that I'm realizing that people are going to read this stuff and judge me based on it or whatever else. But
I'd be horrified.
Yeah, I'm just not. I think I've got to the point though where I figured my friends, you know, especially people like you, and you know, and then people like Rob, and you know, my very good friends, know me well enough that I don't really feel like they're going to read this and never speak to me again. And then the people who don't know me, they kind of read it and they think of me as some sort of cartoon character.
Well, but you confess to things in the book that you don't confess to your friends. So there is there is something in real life where you don't want to talk about these things. So
you're saying it's therapy. The book's therapy. Well, and I think do you know what the other thing is? I think it would be weird to call, like, if I was to call you and be like, oh, so I'm dating this girl, or oh, I'm, you know, blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
like,
that would be really weird to call one of your best friends and talk about dating someone.
No, because
can we get like any commenters weighing in on that? Does anyone find it weird to talk about your dating life with one of your best friends? I don't think you're going to get a lot of support on that one.
I think what it is it's only after the fact, it's only with the benefit of the gap between it happening and writing about it that I've decided whether it means anything.
You know, you have this great vulnerability that makes you more likable than you come across in blog posts. I think sometimes you come across preachy in blog posts, and you don't do that in books at all.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is like, I mean, naturally writing columns and blog posts isn't my natural thing. And I always feel like with a blog post, I have to make a point. Like, I'm being paid to make a point. And I never write something that I don't agree with. You know, I'm not one of these people who just thinks, oh, I need to make a controversial point, despite what some people might accuse me of. But I definitely think I have to make a point. And so I think there's definitely, a preachiness that's inherent with that. Whereas with the book, I don't really feel like that. I feel like I need to tell the truth and then let people draw their own conclusions. So maybe it's not quite as clean or as sort of polemical or whatever, but it's, and I kind of also feel like if you're going to buy a book that's written, you know, if somebody's going to buy a book about my life, I can't have to tell the truth and put it out there. Otherwise, why should somebody pay, you know, what is this, £12.99 to read a half story about somebody's life. Like, I feel like they deserve at least the truth.
Right.
I mean,
well, it's interesting because that's one of the big critiques about Tina Fey's new memoir is that she writes things like, yeah, I got slashed and I have a scar, but I'm not going to tell you that story. Don't ask. It's like, well, why did I buy your book if you're not going to tell me anything?
And it's the same as, like, to your point about people coming up to me and asking me quite personal questions. It's like, that's the deal. Like, if you're saying my life is public, is part of the public record, is like, I think it's important enough or interesting enough or funny enough or whatever to ask for money in exchange for it, then the deal is I have to put up with that shit, and the deal is, and I have to be happy about it, and also I have to be honest. Definitely I will leave stories out if they're going to hurt other people. Saying with the first book, there were stories about relationships I had and whatever else where I left them out because I knew it would damage or hurt other people. But when it comes to myself, I'm pretty much fair game. I have to be. So.
Well, and you are going to have to be even more because pretty soon this won't be an issue of people picking up a book.
I see what you're doing there. You're leading me into news. You're like,
Paul Carr has signed a film deal for this book, ladies and gentlemen.
I have sold the option for a movie of The Upgrade. I found this. I had a meeting yesterday. I found out I had a film agent. I didn't know. I got this call from this person called George, who it turns out I got an email first from this person called George, who it turns out is a woman, who is lovely. Who says
last name Elliot?
Exactly. Yeah, George Elliot is my film agent. I swim in strange circles. So I got this call from and then I got this call from her, and she was like, oh yeah, things have moved a bit quicker than I anticipated. So she works at the same agency as my book agent, and she'd sort of like read The Upgrade and liked it, and had mentioned it in a meeting to some film people who jumped on it and said, oh yeah, that's, we want to know more about that. So she had to call me and say, how do you feel about film? And because I'm basically about to sign a deal. So had a very quick meeting yesterday, like very hastily arranged meeting. And then today it's signed, it's done. Can I tell you what they said? They said, we see it. And this is when I said, you know what? You guys are the experts in this. I'm just going to sit it out and I don't want any creative responsibility. Because they said, and I mean, this isn't the worst thing they could have said, but they said, we see it as Catch Me If You Can meets The Hangover. And I was like...
Kind of sounds like your life. It kind of sounds like the book, actually. It sounds like a pretty accurate representation. Who do you want to play with you, and who do you want to play you, and who would you be horrified if they played you?
I don't... people ask me that, and I when it was a joke about it being a potential movie. Now I actually have to address it. Honestly, I don't know. It would be fucking so narcissistic for me to have thought about that. I've thought about who might play other people.
You just wrote 2 books about yourself. Are you going to pretend not to be narcissistic?
No, but there is something weird about saying, because it's like people who say, people always say I look like insert name of celebrity. And the immediate response, even if they do look like that person, the immediate response is, oh, fuck off. I don't know. I can do it for other people. I think Mike, if Mike is in it, I think he should be played by Hank Azaria. Reprising the role he played in Shattered Glass, one of his more serious roles. But he's got that sort of, he's still got that sort of comedic side to him. I think maybe you, I don't know, I've been thinking about, who would play you, and I think maybe sort of Zooey Deschanel, something like that. How do you feel about that?
No, I don't. I'm still pissed I'm in the book to begin with, so. No, I'm not. This is a touchy subject, because I'm not supposed to be in the book to begin with.
And now you're in the film. I did not say you wouldn't be in the film.
As long as I don't end up with Mike's character in some sort of bastardized romantic comedy version of this.
You and Mike are gonna end up. That's the romantic arc is you and Mike get together.
All right, I will see you in Berlin, Paul.
Yes, looking forward to it. We'll do a live Why Is This News for the one time in this year when we're actually in the same town. Join us, I guess, next week. Depends when this goes out.
Whenever this, yeah. Join us a week after this airs.
Exactly. On Why Is This News?